She called the police on his car until they learned he built it. Follows the harrowing journey of Jamal Carter, a brilliant black engineer who designs a revolutionary prototype car. When a prejudiced neighbor, Karen, calls the police, accusing him of theft, Jamal is humiliated, arrested, and dragged into a system that doubts his very identity despite clear proof. Each chapter unveils the raw tension between his quiet resilience and the abuse of power he faces, from the painful ride in the squad car to the crushing interrogation, and finally the life-changing call from his CEO that exposes the truth. As the story unfolds, the world learns of the injustice. Public outrage erupts. The officers are disgraced, and Karen loses everything. In the end, Jamal rises, not only as a survivor, but as a symbol of resilience, turning his pain into legacy and poetic justice. This is not just a story of racism. It's about survival, resistance, and the unshakable power of truth. The hum of the electric motor faded as Jamal eased the sleek, silver coupe to a stop in front of the client's house. The car looked like a dream, sculpted out of glass and steel, low, sharp, gleaming. Neighbors peeked through curtains, their eyes catching the shimmer of a machine they'd never seen before. Jamal stepped out, straightening his blazer. The silence of the street broke. "Excuse me," a sharp voice rang out. Jamal turned. A middle-aged white woman stood at the edge of her driveway, phone clutched like a weapon, blonde hair, tight smile, eyes brimming with suspicion. "That your car?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am," Jamal replied calmly. Her gaze hardened. "Don't lie to me. I know what I saw. You don't belong here." Jamal's jaw tightened. "I'm here to see a client. I parked, that's all." She stepped closer, lowering her voice but sharpening each word. "I've lived here 20 years. I know who belongs. You don't. That car doesn't." Jamal inhaled slowly, forcing patience. "It's mine," she laughed once. Bitter. "Yours, please. I've never seen someone like you with a car like that. Where'd you steal it from?" Her words cut, but Jamal kept his composure. "I built it." She blinked, then scoffed. "Built it? What kind of story is that? You think I'm stupid?" He shook his head. "I don't think that. I'm telling the truth." She tilted her phone, thumb hovering. "We'll see about that. I'm calling the police." Jamal's chest tightened. His mind flashed with warnings his mother drilled into him since boyhood. "Don't raise your voice. Don't make sudden moves. Always keep your hands visible." "Ma'am," he said carefully, "that's unnecessary. I haven't done anything wrong. You're trespassing. You're a thief. You're threatening me." "I never threatened you." "You're making me feel unsafe," she snapped. "That's enough." The phone was already at her ear. Jamal's stomach sank as she painted her performance for the 911 operator. "Yes. Hi, there's a suspicious black man outside my house." "Yes, he's driving a stolen car. He looks dangerous. Please hurry." Jamal stood still, fists unclenched, eyes stinging. Across the street, blinds shifted, neighbors whispered. His every breath was evidence against him. When she hung up, she smirked. "They'll be here soon. Better hope you can explain yourself." Jamal looked at his car, his creation, his pride, his proof of years of sweat and brilliance. Yet, in her eyes, it was nothing but stolen glory. In the distance, faint sirens began to howl. Jamal whispered to himself, low enough only he could hear, "Stay calm, stay alive." The wail grew louder, echoing off manicured lawns and perfect fences. The woman folded her arms, triumphant, and Jamal waited, standing alone beside the car she swore could never be his. The sirens grew louder until flashing blue and red washed over the quiet cul-de-sac. Tires crunched against pavement as two squad cars pulled up, boxing in Jamal's sleek silver coupe. The hum of engines silenced the neighborhood. Blinds lifted higher, doors cracked open. Two officers stepped out, hands resting casually but not idly on holstered guns. "Evening, officers," Jamal said, voice steady. The woman rushed forward, breathless and dramatic. "That's him. That's the man I told you about. He doesn't live here. That car, he stole it." I felt threatened. I didn't know if he had a weapon. Her words spilled out in rehearsed panic. The taller officer turned his gaze to Jamal. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Jamal kept his palms visible. "This is my car. I'm here visiting a client. Didn't ask for explanations. Step away. Hands where I can see them." Jamal obeyed, taking 2 measured steps back. His heart pounded, but his face betrayed nothing. "ID and registration," the shorter officer demanded. Jamal nodded calmly. "My wallet's in my inside pocket. May I reach for it?" The taller one smirked. "Careful one, huh? Go ahead. Slow." Jamal retrieved his wallet, passed over his license. He pulled papers from the glove box. Insurance, registration. His hands trembled slightly, not from guilt, but from the weight of knowing innocence wasn't protection. The taller officer scanned the documents, his brow furrowing. "This registration says Jamal Carter," he muttered. "That's me." Jamal replied. The woman shook her head violently. "Don't believe him. People fake documents all the time. Look at that car. Do you really think he could afford something like this?" The shorter officer raised an eyebrow. "What do you do for a living, Mr. Carter?" "I'm an engineer. I design electric vehicles. That car is a prototype I built myself." A pause. Silence stretched, then broke into laughter. The taller officer said, chuckling, "Built this? Come on, man. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." Jamal swallowed. "I'm telling you the truth." The woman seized the moment, clutching her chest. "You see, he's lying. He probably hacked into some database and printed fake ownership papers. I know his type. Smooth talker, dangerous neighbors." Gathered closer now, whispering. "Is he armed?" Someone muttered. "I told you I didn't feel safe," the woman insisted. The shorter officer gestured to the car. "Pop the trunk." "What?" Jamal asked. "Because I said so." "You hiding something?" Jamal's jaw tightened. "Nothing to hide. But is this necessary?" The taller officer stepped closer, hand brushing the holster. "Don't question procedure, trunk. Now." Jamal complied, opening the rear compartment. It was empty, except for a briefcase of design blueprints. The officer flipped through the pages, complex schematics, technical notes. He frowned, unable to understand but unwilling to admit it. "What's this supposed to be?" "My work," Jamal answered softly. The woman peered over his shoulder. "Looks like stolen documents to me. He probably broke into some company." The taller officer snapped the briefcase shut. "Enough. We're going to need you to come with us for further questioning." Jamal's chest tightened. "Even with proof in your hands." "Proof?" The officer sneered. "All I see is a guy with a story, and it doesn't add up." A murmur rippled through the watching crowd. Some neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but none stepped forward. Their silence was permission. Jamal took a breath, steady but heavy. "Officers, please, I've done nothing wrong. You have my ID, my registration. That car is mine." The shorter one leaned in, voice low but sharp. "Then, why do you look so nervous?" Jamal's eyes flicked to the woman, who was now trembling with theatrical fear. She whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "He scares me. Please don't let him stay here." The taller officer's hand gripped his holster. "Sir, we're not going to ask again. Turn around." Jamal froze. Every instinct screamed to resist, but his mother's voice echoed, "Do not give them a reason. Live to fight another day." His voice cracked slightly, but he steadied it. "I'll cooperate, but this isn't justice. This is humiliation." The shorter officer smirked. "Call it whatever you want." Behind them, a child's voice pierced the tension. "Mommy, why are they arresting him?" A woman shushed her child quickly, pulling her back indoors. The door slammed. The woman who had called the police smiled faintly. Her performance completed. As the officers moved in, Jamal stood tall, staring at the car that was his triumph, his proof of brilliance, now twisted into evidence against him. The taller officer pulled cuffs from his belt. "You have the right to remain silent," and cold metal closed around Jamal's wrists. The narrator's voice cut through like steel. "In this neighborhood, his excellence was a crime. His creation was a weapon. His existence, a threat." The crowd watched. Some nodded in approval, others turned away, and Jamal was led toward the flashing lights, the woman clutching her phone like a trophy. The station air smelled faintly of bleach and stale coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Jamal sat on a hard metal chair, hands still cuffed behind him. His registration and insurance papers lay on the desk, untouched. Across from him, the taller officer flipped them idly, like leafing through a magazine he didn't care to read. "Everything checks out on paper," the shorter officer muttered. "License matches, registration valid, insurance paid, doesn't mean it's his." The taller one shot back. Jamal raised his voice just enough to be heard. "It is mine. Those documents prove it." The taller officer leaned forward. "Listen, Carter. People forge things. People scam systems, especially people trying to play out of their league." Jamal's eyes narrowed. "Out of my league," the officer smirked. "You really expect us to believe a guy like you built that car? Come on, don't insult our intelligence." The woman's voice sliced in before Jamal could respond. She had insisted on riding along to give her statement. Now she sat in the corner, her hands folded neatly in her lap like a proud witness. "That's what I've been saying," she chimed. "I know this neighborhood. I know who belongs. He doesn't that card. I knew it couldn't be his. You can just feel when something's wrong." Jamal turned his head toward her, eyes heavy with disbelief. "You don't know me. You don't know what I've worked for." Her lips curled. "I know your type." The shorter officer ignored the jab, sliding Jamal's resume printout across the desk. They had pulled it from his phone before confiscating it. "So this says you're a lead engineer at what? Emotion Motors?" "Yes," Jamal said firmly. "That's the new electric car startup, right? Supposed to be some Silicon Valley thing." "It's not just some thing," Jamal replied. "I designed the prototype you're accusing me of stealing." Silence followed, heavy and skeptical. Then the taller officer let out a dry laugh. "You're saying you designed that car? You?" "Yes. That machine out there costs more than most houses on this block. And you," the officer paused, his eyes sweeping Jamal from blazer to sneakers, "you want us to believe you put it together with your bare hands." Jamal kept his gaze steady. "With my mind, my hands, and my team." "Yes," the woman scoffed. "Ridiculous. He's just trying to confuse you with words. Isn't it obvious? He's lying. Look at him." The shorter officer shifted uneasily. His tone softened, but his suspicion didn't fade. "Okay, just say you're telling the truth. Where's your boss? Where's anyone to back this up?" Jamal exhaled sharply. "You took my phone. You blocked me from making a call. If you'd let me, don't raise your voice." The taller one cut in, his hand pressing the desk. Jamal shut his mouth, swallowing the heat that rose in his chest. The shorter officer tapped the table thoughtfully. "We can't just let him go. What if he really did steal it?" The taller one nodded. "Exactly. We take him in for further questioning. Hold him overnight if we need to." The woman smiled faintly, satisfied. Jamal's voice cracked as he tried again. "You're ignoring evidence. You're ignoring the truth because you've already decided who I am. I gave you everything you asked for, and it's not enough." The taller officer snapped. The words hung like a gavel's strike. From the hallway outside, faint murmurs echoed, officers talking, phones ringing. But in this room, the silence after that sentence was suffocating. Jamal stared at the table, his mind racing. He thought of the years he spent in windowless labs, drafting, coding, testing. He thought of the pride in his mother's eyes when he rolled the prototype into the company garage. And now, all of it meant nothing in this room. His voice dropped, quiet but sharp. "You don't see a man who worked his way up, you see a suspect. Always a suspect." Neither officer responded. The woman tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "Maybe if you'd just been honest from the start, this wouldn't have happened." Jamal let out a bitter laugh. "Honest, I told the truth from the moment you opened your mouth, but you didn't want truth. You wanted a thief to justify your fear." Her face hardened. "You're dangerous when you talk like that." The taller officer slammed the folder shut, ending the exchange. "That's it. We're taking him in." The shorter one hesitated. "But his paper's not enough." The taller barked. Jamal lifted his cuffed hands, chains clinking. "You'll regret this." The officer leaned close, his breath heavy with coffee. "The only thing I regret is wasting this much time. Let's go." As they pulled him to his feet, Jamal locked eyes with the woman. She didn't flinch. Instead, she gave a small, victorious nod, as though she'd secured her neighborhood, her safety, her status. And as Jamal was led down the sterile hallway, the narrator's voice cut in, cold and sharp. His proof was never going to be enough. In a world that doubted his every breath, the evidence of his hands, his mind, his genius, all of it weighed less than one woman's fear. The metal door closed behind him with a heavy thud. The cuffs bit into Jamal's wrists as the officers guided him toward the patrol car. Blue and red lights bounced across the manicured lawns. The crowd that had gathered whispered, their voices like gnats in the dark. "Thought he was slick. Knew something was off when I saw that car. Better safe than sorry." The woman stood at the edge of her driveway, arms folded, chin lifted as if she had single-handedly saved her neighborhood. Jamal kept his eyes forward. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of looking back. The taller officer pushed his head down as he was loaded into the back seat. "Watch your head, genius." The door slammed. Inside, the air was stale with the scent of vinyl and old sweat. The metal mesh separated him from the officers up front. He sat rigid, shoulders tense, the cuffs forcing his spine straight. The shorter officer started the engine. "So, Carter," he said casually, "where'd you really get that car?" "I told you," Jamal replied evenly. "I built it." The taller one chuckled. glancing at his partner. Man, I've heard a lot of lies in this job. That one's creative. I built it. What's next? You gonna tell us you're Batman? The car lurched forward. Jamal stared at the passing houses, each one glowing warm in the night. Safe, secure, untouched by this ritual humiliation. His voice dropped low. You laugh because it's easier than admitting you're wrong. The taller officer's head snapped back toward him. Careful. Jamal met his gaze through the mesh. Careful is the only way I've survived this long. The shorter officer snorted, spoken like a man who's had practice. You get picked up often, Carter. Jamal said nothing. Silence was sometimes the only armor left. The taller one leaned back, his words dripping. Come on, you expect us to believe you're some big-shot engineer, driving around in $1 million prototype. You think we're stupid? Jamal's voice steadied. I don't think you're stupid. I think you've already decided what I am, and nothing I say matters. The patrol car went quiet for a moment, the hum of the engine filling the space. Then the shorter officer muttered, always a chip on the shoulder, always the victim. Jamal's jaw tightened. He wanted to scream, to demand respect, but his mother's warnings rose again, carved into memory. Don't argue with them. Don't provoke them. Stay alive. He inhaled slowly, pressing his back against the seat. The cuffs cut deeper into his wrists. The city blurred by outside streetlights, billboards, the occasional pedestrian. None of them knew that inside this moving cage sat a man being erased piece by piece. The taller officer broke the silence. Tell me something, Carter. If you really did make that car, why drive it into a neighborhood like that? Trying to show off. I was visiting a client, Jamal answered. Client? Yes, business. The officer scoffed. Business? In that neighborhood? Don't insult me. Jamal looked at the back of his head and said quietly, you see a black man in a nice car, and the only story you'll ever believe is theft. The taller officer's hand twitched toward his holster instinctively, even though Jamal was cuffed and caged. Watch your mouth. Jamal leaned back, a bitter laugh escaping. That's the problem. My mouth, my silence, my existence, it all threatens you. The officers exchanged a glance, but said nothing. The car rolled on, every second stretching long. Jamal's mind drifted, not away, but deeper. He remembered being 12, riding his bike home when 2 officers stopped him, accusing him of stealing it. He remembered his mother's trembling hands holding his shoulders afterward, whispering, baby, this world won't believe you, even when you tell the truth. Carry your proof, carry your patience, carry your dignity. He thought of her now, the way she'd begged him to always keep documents in order. And yet, here he was, proof dismissed, dignity stripped, patience tested. He whispered to himself, almost inaudible, you were right, Mama. The shorter officer twisted in his seat. What's that? Nothing, Jamal replied. The station loomed ahead, harsh fluorescent lights spilling from its windows, a fortress of cold brick and bureaucracy. That as the car slowed, Jamal's chest tightened. He imagined headlines, black engineer arrested for stealing his own car. He imagined his employer calling, his co-workers whispering, his future shrinking into a cautionary tale. The taller officer parked. End of the line. The door opened, and rough hands pulled Jamal out. His feet touched the cracked pavement, but his soul felt suspended, as if the ground beneath him no longer belonged. The narrator's voice cut in, sharp and unflinching. In this country, innocence is a burden he must prove again and again, yet proof bends under the weight of suspicion, and suspicion always wins the first round. The taller officer shoved him toward the station doors. Let's see if your story holds up under the lights, Carter. Jamal straightened his back, even in chains. He refused to bow, even as the system dragged him deeper into its jaws, and under the buzzing streetlight, his eyes burned with the quiet fire of a man who knew survival tonight was victory enough. The interrogation room was colder than the night outside. Gray walls, a metal table, 2 chairs bolted to the floor. The hum of fluorescent lights overhead never stopped, like a cruel metronome marking time. Jamal sat with his cuffed hands resting on the table, the steel pressed against his skin, raw and unrelenting. He kept his eyes fixed on the scratches carved into the metal initials, curse words, silent screams of others who had sat here before him. The taller officer leaned against the wall, arms crossed. The shorter one sat opposite Jamal, pen tapping against a thin folder. All right, Carter, the shorter officer began, his tone falsely casual. Tell us again, what's your connection to that car? Jamal met his eyes. I designed it. I built it. It's mine. The taller officer scoffed. Every thief says it's theirs. I'm not a thief. Then prove it. The shorter officer pressed. We've got your documents. Doesn't mean squat without corroboration. Jamal inhaled slowly. You took my phone. My employer's number is in it. Call her. She'll confirm everything. The taller officer smirked. Employer. Huh. Big fancy job. You expect us to believe a young guy like you is running around designing $1 million cars? Yes, Jamal said, voice steady. Because it's the truth. The door creaked open. Karen, the woman from the street, stepped in, escorted by another officer. She carried herself like a star witness called to the stand. Her face was painted with concern, her voice dripping with righteousness. Officers, thank you for keeping me safe tonight. I was terrified. Jamal turned toward her, his eyes narrowing. Terrified of what? Me standing beside my own car. She didn't look at him. She spoke directly to the officers, as though Jamal wasn't in the room. He was loitering outside a house that wasn't his. That car, look at it. Too flashy, too expensive. I knew something was wrong. He looked at me aggressively, like he was planning something. That's a lie, Jamal said sharply. Calm down. The taller officer snapped. Karen placed a hand on her chest, trembling for effect. You see, he's hostile. He raises his voice. That's exactly how he made me feel. Earlier threatened. Jamal clenched his fists, the cuffs rattling against the table. He forced his voice low, measured. You approached me. You accused me. You called the police because I didn't fit your picture of who should own that car. She finally looked at him, her lips curling. You scared me. That's enough. The shorter officer scribbled notes. So you're saying you feared for your safety? Yes, she said firmly. Absolutely. Jamal's laugh was bitter, hollow. You feared me because of my skin, not my actions. Let's call it what it is. The taller officer slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. You don't get to decide what this is. We do. Silence crackled in the room. Jamal breathed through his nose, steady, the weight of the cuffs anchoring him to the moment. The shorter officer leaned in. So you're sticking with your story, that you built this car? Yes. And you're some kind of lead engineer? Yes. The taller officer chuckled, shaking his head. Do you hear yourself? You really think anyone's buying this? Jamal's voice sharpened. Laugh if you want. Dismiss me if you want. But the truth doesn't bend for your prejudice. The taller officer stepped close, leaning down until his shadow swallowed Jamal. Truth, your truth, doesn't mean a thing in here. Jamal's pulse quickened, but he held his gaze. History proves otherwise. The truth always finds its way out. Karen interjected quickly, desperate to steer the room. You can't let him manipulate you. Men like him are clever. They'll twist words, make you doubt yourself. But trust me, he doesn't belong in a car like that. He doesn't belong in a place like this. The words struck like arrows, not because they were new, but because they were old, ancient echoes of a system designed to cage him long before this night. Jamal leaned forward, his voice low but powerful. You want to know why that car looks like nothing you've ever seen? Because it came out of a mind like mine. You want to know why you doubt me? Because you cannot imagine someone like me building something greater than anything you've touched in your life. The taller officer barked a laugh. You're delusional. The shorter one looked uneasy now, pen frozen above paper. Karen's face twisted. See, he's arrogant. He's dangerous. Lock him up before he hurts someone. Jamal turned his head, locking eyes with her. You don't fear me. You fear the possibility that I am everything I say I am. For a moment, the room froze. The taller officer broke it, slamming the folders shut. Enough. We'll sort this out in the morning. For now, you're staying put. He reached for Jamal's phone, tucking it deeper into his pocket. No calls tonight. Jamal's voice trembled, not with fear, but with fury restrained. You're holding me without cause. You're burying the truth because it doesn't fit your narrative. The taller officer leaned close again, his whisper sharp. Narrative's all that matters. Carter, hers is louder than yours. Karen nodded slowly, satisfied. As the officers moved to lead him out, Jamal sat motionless for a second longer. His mind burned with the injustice, but his eyes carried a defiance that silence could not smother. The narrator's voice cut through the air, haunting and precise. In a room built for confessions, his truth was laughed at. In a system built for control, her lies carried more weight than his life. And yet, even caged, even dismissed, his words lingered like cracks in the wall, proof waiting to break free. The door clanged shut behind him, leaving only echoes. The holding cells smelled of sweat and rust. Jamal sat on a narrow bench, cuffs finally removed, but the sting of metal still carved into his wrists. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the scuffed concrete floor. The silence here was heavier than the interrogation room. No voices, no accusations, just the echo of his own thoughts. He closed his eyes. His mother's voice returned again, not as warning, but as comfort. You are not what they call you. You are more than what they see. The door clanged open. An officer stepped in, not the ones who arrested him. This one looked uneasy. Carter, someone's here for you. Jamal lifted his head slowly. The officer hesitated. You're buffed for the first time that night. Hope flickered. He was led back into the interrogation room. The taller and shorter officers were there, arms crossed, looking smug as if waiting to reassert their authority. Then the door swung wide. A woman stormed in, tall, sharp suit, eyes blazing. Ms. Eleanor Price, CEO of Emotion Motors. Her voice was a whip. What the hell is going on here? The taller officer blinked. And you are? I'm the CEO of the company, whose lead engineer you're holding in a cell like a criminal. She snapped. She pointed directly at Jamal. That man is Jamal Carter. He is the reason we have a product. He is the designer of the prototype you just dragged off the street. The room froze. The shorter officer fumbled. Ma'am, we were just verifying some inconsistencies. Inconsistencies, she cut in, her tone razor sharp. You arrested him with his identification, his registration, and his insurance in hand. You humiliated him in public. You interfered with my company's operations tonight. Do you have any idea what kind of lawsuit you've just invited? The taller officer's smirk faltered. Karen, who had been sitting smugly in the corner, suddenly shifted in her seat. Her voice was small but desperate. Wait, are you saying he actually works for you? Ms. Price turned on her. Who are you? Karen straightened her back. I'm the one who called. I saw him near that car and knew something was wrong. I was protecting the neighborhood. Protecting? Ms. Price's eyes narrowed. You accused a man of stealing his own creation because you couldn't imagine he was capable of building it. You didn't protect anyone. You endangered him. Karen flushed, her hands tightening around her purse. I only did what I thought was right. What you thought, Ms. Price snapped, was poisoned by your prejudice. The shorter officer tried to regain control. Ma'am, please, we were just following procedure. Ms. Price stepped closer, her voice rising. Procedure is checking documents and releasing a man when everything matches. Procedure is respecting citizens, not dragging them away because some woman played damsel in distress with a story rooted in racism. The taller officer bristled. Now hold on. No, you hold on. Ms. Price shot back. You're lucky I don't have a reporter here this second, because believe me, by tomorrow morning, this will be everywhere. My engineer, arrested for stealing his own car, because a stranger's word outweighed hard proof. Karen's face drained of color. Everywhere, she whispered. Jamal sat silent, watching. His chest swelled with a mixture of vindication and exhaustion. He didn't need to shout anymore. The truth was speaking for him. Ms. Price turned back to him, her voice softening. I'm so sorry, Jamal. You should never have had to endure this. Jamal nodded slowly. His throat was tight, words trapped behind the dam of everything he'd swallowed tonight. The taller officer muttered, Look, no harm done. We were just doing our job. Jamal finally spoke, his voice low but searing. Your job was to uphold the law. Instead, you upheld her fear. The room fell into silence. Ms. Price pointed at the folder on the desk. Release him now. The shorter officer opened his mouth, but the taller one waved a dismissive hand. Fine, he's free to go. Karen shifted forward, desperation creeping into her tone. Wait, you're just going to let him? After everything? Ms. Price cut her off with a glare sharp enough to silence. Do yourself a favor. Leave, before you make this worse for yourself. Karen swallowed hard. For the first time, her confidence cracked. Jamal stood slowly, stretching his stiff wrists. He turned to Karen, his eyes heavy but piercing. You tried to erase me with one phone call, but the truth doesn't vanish that easily. She flinched, unable to meet his gaze. Ms. Price touched Jamal's shoulder gently. Come on, let's get you out of here. As they walked toward the door, the narrator's voice broke in. Truth had entered the room, and suddenly the lies shrank. Authority cracked under the weight of proof undeniable. Yet vindication did not erase the scars carved by suspicion, nor could it return the dignity stolen hour by hour. Behind them, the officers stood stiff, their authority shaken. Karen sat frozen, her world beginning to unravel. Jamal stepped into the night air outside the station. The city smelled different now. Not cleaner, not freer, but sharper, like the first breath after nearly drowning. Ms. Price exhaled beside him. Don't worry, Jamal. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. And though his body sagged with fatigue, his eyes held fire. For the first time that night, the weight shifted. By dawn, the story was already slipping out of the police station's control. A neighbor's video, shaky but damning, had hit the internet. It showed everything: the woman's call, the officers cuffing Jamal despite his documents in hand, the crowd murmuring approval, and Jamal's quiet words swallowed by blue lights. The caption read, "Black engineer arrested for stealing the car he built." Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter threads, TikTok reactions, news headlines. At Emotion Motors headquarters, Ms. Price stood before a sea of reporters, flanked by Jamal. She spoke clearly, each word sharpened to a blade. "This man is Jamal Carter. He is the lead engineer behind our prototype vehicle. Last night, he was arrested while standing beside the car he designed and built, despite providing full proof of ownership. He was accused not because of evidence, but because of prejudice." The microphones surged forward. "Will you be pressing charges?" one reporter shouted. "Against whom?" Ms. Price shot back. "Against the woman who called in a lie, or against the officers who ignored the truth. That's for our legal team to decide. But rest assured, this injustice will not be swept under the rug." Jamal said nothing. Cameras clicked. Lights flashed. He stood tall, laser-pressed, but his eyes carried the exhaustion of a man dragged through fire. Later, in the break room away from the noise, a colleague approached him cautiously. "Man, you okay?" Jamal's lips curved faintly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm alive. That's not nothing." "No," Jamal murmured, "but it's not enough either." By afternoon, hashtags trended worldwide. Hashtag driving while black, hashtag justice for Jamal, hashtag she called the cops. Clips of Karen's performance, trembling voice, words like threatened and unsafe, went viral. Internet detectives unearthed her full name, her employer, even old posts dripping with casual racism. By evening, her company released a statement, effective immediately. "Karen Holt is no longer employed with us. We do not condone prejudice or discrimination in any form." Her name flooded search results. Her face became a meme. One caption read, "She tried to erase him. Now the internet erased her." But Jamal didn't celebrate. He sat in his apartment that night, blinds drawn, his prototype parked safely in the garage below. The hum of the city outside felt different now, louder, hungrier. His phone buzzed with endless notifications, a voicemail from his mother. "Baby, I'm proud of you, but my heart hurts. Call me when you can." Text after text from friends. "Saw you on the news. Man, I can't believe it happened to you." And the one message that hit hardest, from a younger cousin: "They saw you, Jamal. They see us." He sank into the couch, head in his hands. There was a knock at the door. Ms. Price stood outside when he opened it, her face tired but firm. She stepped in without waiting for an invitation. "You should know," she said. "The city's launching an internal investigation. The officers are on administrative leave." Jamal gave a hollow laugh. "Paid vacation." Her eyes softened. "Maybe, maybe not. Public pressure is heavy. They can't ignore it." Jamal sank back onto the couch. "Justice feels like a headline, but when the cameras leave, I'll still be the man they doubted." Ms. Price sat across from him. "You're also the man who built something they couldn't believe was possible. Don't let them steal that from you." Silence settled, broken only by the hum of the fridge. Jamal finally whispered, "I don't feel like I won. I feel like I survived." "That's not the same," Ms. Price agreed. "No," he said, staring at his hands, "but in this country, sometimes survival is the only victory we get." The next day, protesters gathered outside the police station. Signs filled the air. "Our skin is not probable cause. Believe proof, not prejudice. Justice for Jamal equals justice for us." Chants echoed down the street, raw and unrelenting. Inside, the officers watched from the windows. The taller one clenched his jaw, muttering, "All this over one arrest." The shorter one shifted uneasily. "It's not just one arrest. It's every arrest that looks like this." The taller one snorted. "Public will forget in a week." But he didn't sound so sure. Karen, meanwhile, found herself cornered. Reporters camped outside her house. Former friends deleted her number. Her name was a curse online. She tried to issue a public apology. "I never meant harm. I was only trying to protect my community." The backlash was immediate. Comments flooded in. You weren't protecting anyone, you were protecting your privilege. Apology not accepted. You ruined your own life. He just wanted to park his car. Her face, once painted with superiority, now appeared weary and hounded. She shut her blinds, turned off her phone. But the noise didn't stop. Jamal watched it all unfold, but he refused to engage online. Instead, he spoke quietly to those who mattered. To his mother, who cried softly over the phone, "I'm okay, Mama, I promise." To his cousin, who texted again, "One day I'll be like you," he replied, "Be better than me. Build higher. Don't let them stop you." To Ms. Price, who asked what he wanted moving forward, "I want the work to speak louder than their lies. I want the car to shine so bright they can't deny who made it." The narrator's voice cut in, steady and unflinching. Justice had come, but not as healing. It came as exposure, as shame for those who tried to bury the truth. Yet exposure cannot mend scars. It cannot undo the moment when hands reached for cuffs instead of trust. What it can do is echo, a warning, a reckoning, a seed of change planted in soil too long poisoned. Jamal stood in his garage later that night, hand resting on the hood of the silver prototype. Its surface reflected his weary face, fractured by light. He whispered to the machine he had birthed into existence, "They tried to take you from me, but they couldn't. They won't." The car, silent and powerful, seemed to hold the weight of his words, and though the internet burned with his name, though the world debated his existence, in that moment, Jamal claimed something greater than vindication. He claimed endurance. Weeks passed, the headlines shifted to new scandals, new tragedies, but the echo of Jamal's story lingered. The video remained online, replayed in classrooms, workplaces, community forums. His face, weary yet unbroken, became a symbol. The city's investigation wrapped. The findings leaked before the official report. The officers had ignored procedure, dismissed valid documentation, and escalated a situation born from one woman's bias. Administrative leave turned into suspension. Suspension turned into termination. The police union issued a carefully worded statement about regrettable misunderstandings, but the public saw through it. People remembered that Karen Holt's fall was sharper. She lost her job, her HOA presidency, and eventually her home, sold under the pressure of lawsuits and debts. When she walked through town now, heads turned, not in admiration, but in scorn. Neighbors whispered, "That's the woman who called the cops on the man who built the car." Poetic justice had arrived. On a crisp Saturday morning, Jamal stood before a crowd at the unveiling of the Emotion prototype. The stage gleamed under soft lights, the car shining silver like a promise. Cameras clicked, voices buzzed, but Jamal heard none of it. Ms. Price introduced him with fire in her words. "This man is not only our lead engineer, he is a visionary. He turned metal and code into possibility. And when prejudice tried to chain him, he stood taller. Tonight, we honor not just his genius, but his resilience." The audience roared. Jamal stepped to the microphone, adjusting it slightly. His reflection in the cars who'd stared back at him, urging him forward. His voice was calm, steady. "I built this car to move people, to move us toward cleaner futures, smarter roads, faster travel. But a machine is just metal if the world around it stays the same. Last month, I was accused of stealing what I built. My proof didn't matter. My word didn't matter. Only my skin mattered." The crowd hushed. Jamal continued, "That night could have ended differently. You've seen the headlines. Too many stories like mine don't end with press conferences and lawsuits. They end in funerals. I survived. But survival should not be our only measure of success." Applause rose, some clapping through tears. He paused, letting the silence hold weight. "We talk about innovation as if it's only technology, but true innovation is changing how we see each other, believing truth when it comes from a voice you don't expect, respecting humanity before suspicion." He stepped back. The audience rose to their feet. The narrator's voice slid in, cool and unyielding. His words were not just for the stage. They were for every courtroom where innocence bent under suspicion, every sidewalk where fear pulled the trigger, every neighborhood where a call could cost a life. His survival was not the end, it was the spark. Outside, reporters clamored for reactions. Protesters carried signs, not against Jamal, but for him now. "Protect Black genius. Innovation has no color. Believe builders, not bias." The officers, watching from their homes, felt the sting of invisibility. Once cloaked in authority, They now lived in quiet disgrace, no longer enforcers, just men stripped of badges, waiting for new work that wouldn't come easy. Karen, scrolling through her cracked phone, saw Jamal's speech replayed. The crowd, the applause, the respect. She closed her eyes, bitter tears cutting lines down her cheeks. She whispered to an empty room, "It should have been simple. I should have just walked away." But it was too late. Her name would forever carry the weight of her call. After the event, Jamal stood beside his car, letting strangers admire it, touch it, take selfies with it. Children's faces lit up as he explained how it worked, how dreams turned into design. One boy, no older than 10, tugged on his sleeve. "Mister, did you really build this?" Jamal crouched down, smiling faintly. "Every part of it." The boy's eyes widened. "Then I can build stuff too." Jamal nodded. "You can build anything. Don't let anyone tell you different." The boy grinned, running back to his mother, who mouthed a thank you with tears in her eyes. That moment felt bigger than applause, bigger than headlines. It was the kind of victory prejudice could never erase. Later that night, Jamal sat alone in his apartment. The city glowed outside his window. His phone buzzed with congratulations, invitations, praise. But he set it aside. He whispered to himself, "They tried to break me." Silence answered. He exhaled. "But I'm still here." The words hung in the air, heavy and holy. The narrator closed the story with quiet finality. Poetic justice is not balance restored. It is a glimpse, a reminder that wrongs carry consequences, that arrogance finds its mirror, that prejudice cannot always hide behind procedure. For Jamal, justice was never about revenge. It was about being seen, about standing in the light with his creation and declaring, "I belong. I always did." And in that truth, unshaken and undeniable, he built something greater than a car. He built a legacy.